And for our ingredients, we will be needing the following: fish sauce, ginger, red onions, garlic, chili, oil, pork blood, of course, our papaya for our extender for the bloodless dinuguan, and of course, our pork innards. This comprised of small and large intestines and stomach of a pig. So this has been boiled to tenderize. For our bloodless dinuguan, we will be needing soy sauce and annatto seeds to mimic the chocolatey appearance of your regular dinuguan. And for our tinumis, we will be needing bilimbi or kamias as our souring agent. Although the original tinumis actually uses the usbong ng sampalok. Tara, let's start cooking! For a stew recipe just like your dinuguan, sauteing is very much important, not only because that it will give a nice flavor for our recipe, but at the same time it will also remove the fishy flavor or the lansa of our pork innards. So as you can see, I sauteed first the ginger because it's the ginger which will help really to remove the lansa factor on a dinuguan recipe. So this is now our sliced parboiled pork innards, which we will now saute on our local wok. We will saute this a little longer until its own fat will render, and we will turn a little this into brown. And so while sauteing, we will now be adding in some of our seasonings such as our pepper and our laurel. As you can see, our pork innards is now starting to render its own fat. And while waiting, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Alright, so this is exactly how I want our pork innards. It is now browned. It is now popping or pumuputok. So this is actually the way how Ilocanos prepared their dinuguan. We make it sure that the pork innards are popping. So this is going to be our base for our two recipes because at home, my parents do not eat pork with blood. So we're going to divide this into two. Now, I'm currently adding in our annatto powder. So this will enhance the color of our dinuguan, and at the same time, it will give that nutty flavor for our recipe. I also added in our fish sauce to season our recipe. Now, let us now divide this recipe. The other half will be used for our bloodless dinuguan, while the other half will be used for our tinumis sa Kamias. Now, let us now set aside the other half of our recipe because we will cook first our bloodless dinuguan. So this is going to be a meal for my parents because like what I've said a while back, they're not eating pork dinuguan. So with this, we will be adding in some oil to sizzle the pan, and at the same time, we will add our extender for this recipe, which is the papaya. So papaya is normally an extender of dinuguan here in Pangasinan, or in the absence of papaya, you may also use chayote or sayote. So please do not be surprised if the recipe has more papaya now over the pork innards. Well, we are Ilocano and Ilocanos are frugal, so that's it. This turns out to be more likely a bloodless papayang dinuguan. But it's still good. Now, I added in some stock which came from the broth to where we boiled our pork innards earlier. So, glazing the pan will help the papaya cook faster. Now, we're almost good with this one. All we have to do is season this with soy sauce to mimic the original color of our dinuguan. So kinda, this is just like adobo somehow, but I'd love to call it bloodless dinuguan. So we'll just simmer this for a while and allow some of the liquids to evaporate, because this is how we actually cook dinuguan here in Pangasinan. It's most likely dry. So it's not that typical dinuguan that has sarsa. We like it more dry rather than with the sarsa. And there you go, presenting my own take of bloodless dinuguan. Oops, we're not yet done. We'll just set aside this recipe because we will now cook our tinumis sa Kamias recipe, which is the other half of the original recipe a while back. So I'll just set this aside and let's proceed to our next recipe. So this is our recipe a while back. We've turned on the flame and it's now continuing to sizzle. So with this, we will now going to add in our sliced Kamias. So like what I've said a while back, the original tinumis, which is a typical recipe in the Central Luzon, particularly in Nueva Ecija, uses the usbong ng sampalok, or this is the young leaves of the tamarind tree. So the pork dinuguan and tinumis actually resembles each other. They only differ on the souring agent, because in your typical dinuguan, pork dinuguan or whatever dinuguan that is, the typical souring agent is vinegar. While for tinumis, it's the usbong ng sampalok. But for this particular recipe, I am using Kamias. So, a Kamias or your bilimbi is also a pretty good alternative for your usbong ng sampalok. So, I've added in our papaya, good extender, like what I've said for our dinuguan. By the way, as you can see, I sauteed well the Kamias to extract its sour flavor. I'm also adding in extra broth from our stock to deglaze the pan, and at the same time to create a sarsa for the tinumis. Now for this recipe, since the other one is dry, with this one, there's going to be a sarsa for the tinumis, or there's going to be a sauce. So all we have to do is simmer this, allow the flavors or all the flavors to marry each other, and we will just tenderize the papaya, and then later on we can now add in our pork blood. So our sarsa is now simmering. This is now the perfect time to add our pork blood. So do not allow this to boil on its own. So upon pouring in the blood, you have to continually stir the recipe so as you will come up with a velvety texture or smooth texture of your sarsa. Tendency, if you are not going to mix this, or you will just let it simmer or boil on its own, the blood will curdle and it will separate with the sauce. So we don't want that in a dinuguan with sarsa. So the technique is you have to continually stir, gently stir, so as the sauce will become velvety and soupy and thick. So this is exactly how I like my own version of tinumis or dinuguan. I like to have a thick sauce or sarsa. Now, to add some kick for this recipe, I'm adding in chili oil, my homemade chili oil, to have that a little spice for this recipe. And we're almost good. We are almost good with our tinumis sa Kamias. We'll just simmering it in a few minutes more. And there you go. This is now our tinumis sa Kamias. We'll just finish this up by adding in our green chilies to add some fresh flavor for the recipe, and we're almost good to go. Look at that. Look at that sauce. It's very rich, it's velvety, and I like the smell. I like the aroma. I wish to have puto on the side while eating this one, but kanin, steamed white kanin will do. And we're ready to plate. And if you do love this video, please do like and share and drop a comment. At kung bago ka sa channel natin ito, huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe at hampasin ang notification bell para ikaw ay parating updated sa ating mga newly uploaded videos. Thank you guys for watching!